Hello there, outliers, pioneers, and mavericks. Niiamahashong here, and I am thrilled to be a part of a conversation here with Aaron Baker. Aaron, I'm thrilled to have you here. It's great to have you on here. I would love to really just get into this conversation and give us a chance to really be out there for our tribes. You know, I'll be honest with you. There was a lot of nerves before this conversation started. I'm like, oh man, I'm still experimenting. I want to find out different things, and I hold you in high regard. I know that we met a couple of weeks ago at the Rich Liffin Intensive, and you were one of the people who showed up incredibly powerfully in my entire experience, in the 4-day experience there. You just showed up incredibly powerfully. And I think that as we bring you here, I'd love to just share a little bit about who you've been to me, and just let that come out. So, Aaron, I've seen you as someone who's actually allowed me to play a lot more with who I am and how I show up in the world. One of the first memories I have of you was when the two of us ended up playing a game with other people on the streets of San Diego. There's that red paperclip game, and we were trading up and up along the way. And there's something about the way that you choose to be in the world that is incredibly freeing, that creates more space for me and others to be themselves, and really just invites a new level of the word is play. The word is play. And I think that, for a tribe of people who are out there on their own, out there who are doing things differently, and whose comfort zone looks very different than the status quo, being able to play as that comes along is such an incredible tool. And I want to thank you as we start off here for helping me to reconnect to that, helping me to remember that. And I love to bring that element of play into our conversation here today. So welcome to the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nemo. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being my partner in crime, aka paperclip trading. I wanted to tell you this, but I found a red paperclip. I don't know where I found it in the last week, but I keep it in my wallet now, just attached, so that I have a reminder almost every day of what are you doing to play today. And so every time I open it, I see you and I think of you, and it just creates a sense of joy in me and a level of fearlessness too, because that particular game required us to go talk to strangers on the street and ask them for ridiculous things. And we found in humanity so many people willing to play along. And so I love that reminder of that game. Is it, what are you doing to play today, and who's going to play along with you?
Awesome. Let's the two of us play right now here. I was thinking about this here, and I think what would be really fun for me is to come into this conversation not as this is Nemo's conversation that he wants to have, but like, let's co-create something. So I'd love to just even start this with us setting an intention for today. If today's conversation was going to be game changing, right? If it's going to be a game changing conversation for us, like, what would we talk about that would really get us to that place?
The synergy between the passions you and I have, and how that can turn into some incredible magic that we put out there into the world.
Love it. So let's play with that. So for anyone that's watching, even just for me, like, part of this here is we wanted to connect, and we said, well, why don't we make this into something beyond just the two of us getting to know each other even better, and finding where the two of us might have some synergies and some opportunities to collaborate, and make this available for others. And I think one of the things that I love to do is just to help us orient into who you are in the world. I've shared who you are to me. I've shared my experience of you, and I want to give people and myself a chance to really get to know who you are in the world. I'm going to do this very deliberately. And the question I would ask here is, I would be very interested in your 3 proudest accomplishments to date, and maybe you can tell us what the three of them are, and then maybe choose one of them that you may want to expand upon. And the idea here is that I'd love to understand some of your outer journey, some of the outer things that you've accomplished that we can look at and say, here's the results that you've gotten. And then I'd love to really just to get to know you by understanding some of the inner journey that went behind it.
Cool. So the first one that always comes to mind as my biggest accomplishment is finishing a PhD. So I did a PhD in social psychology. Social psychology is not clinical psychology. A lot of people think they're very much the same thing, but social psychology is really about understanding how people interact with others in the world, how they think, how they behave, what emotions come up. And so it really encompasses everyday interactions, things like how do you form your beliefs? How do you relate to others in the world? When do you follow social norms? When do you break from social norms? And so, it's a fascinating topic. And to go through a PhD program is one of the hardest things a person can do because it requires a level of grit and resilience that I didn't even know I had in myself. There's nobody telling you what you're supposed to do as a PhD. You're supposed to sort of direct your own path, and you need to learn when to ask for help. You need to learn that failure is not just a thing that happens, but just a requirement of the process. You need to learn that rejection happens and that people are not very tactful in the way they reject your work. And so it can be very easy to take that as a personal attack. And so getting through a PhD program really taught me a lot about who I was in terms of someone who has courage, who has strength, who has grit. And I think about that every day now as a coach and a broader entrepreneur, because all the things I just said about failure, rejection, not having a path, those are the exact same thing.
So what I'm getting here is you have a bit of experience, just a bit of experience of being out there on your own and having to. I don't have a PhD. I have a couple of friends who have, and kudos to you on choosing to go down that path. It's something where 3 letters actually represent a lot, right? And when I think about it, it shows a lot about who you are to go through that process. I find myself getting curious here. You didn't go down clinical psychology; you went down social psychology. Getting a PhD is not something that most people end up doing. Why?
That's a great question.
I'm just going to ask it.
No, it's a great question. So a long story short being, I've always been fascinated with people. I'm very fascinated with how they interact with the world. I have this joke that I'm a little bit introverted and a little bit outwardly focused. And so I've been studying people so I could better understand them. Rather than, the academic work. But the more I went through a PhD program, or even just in my undergrad, I realized there's so much we know about humans and the way they behave. And there's a lot that we could teach the world about humans and the way they behave. And so when I got my PhD, I was very dedicated to this idea that I wasn't going to go up the academic path. That is the standard thing that you do. You go get your PhD, you become a professor. In fact, both my parents are professors and pretty well established in their field. And I knew I wanted to take my knowledge and use it in the world somehow. So one of my first acts of me being a little bit of a rule breaker or, an outlier is I said, I'm not going up the academic path. And I thought, how do I want to use what I know in the world? And what happened was Facebook came calling. And I had never thought about working for Facebook or any social media company, to be honest. And then I saw the potential to have really strong impact on the world using my knowledge. And so I was hired as a researcher to help really deeply understand how are humans connecting with each other? How do they think about how they share things on Facebook? How are they forming community? And it became a really interesting ground for studying the human condition. But this leads me to my second most favorite accomplishment is it's not a traditional accomplishment, but I'm really, really proud of myself for actually leaving Facebook. And
Yeah,
so,
I would not expect that to be something that I would have thought
no,
that like
I
yeah, I
think,
would give that the space. It's like
yeah,
you're proud of yourself for leaving Facebook. And I think a lot of people work really hard to get into it and they're spend their energies in there. So tell me a little bit about that.
yeah. So first of all, I love the word accomplishment, but I also like to mess with what words mean. And so when was thinking about this, was thinking, well, what are the things I'm just proudest for doing, whether or not it's considered an accomplishment? And after, excuse me, 3.5 years at Facebook, there were a lot of things that were calling me somewhere else. My mom had gotten really sick, and I had been flying home to Arizona, which is where she lives, every 3 weeks, trying to maintain a job and spending time with her. I was starting to see how big of a behemoth Facebook had become, and I was starting to question whether the impact I was having was the impact I really wanted to have on the world. And to be honest, I was starting to get a little burnt out. And I could see that I had gotten so wrapped up in Facebook being my identity that I had lost all sense of my priorities. And so I decided about a couple of years ago at this point that even though for a lot of people, they would say, well, first of all, you're crazy for leaving academia. But if you're going to go to academia, Facebook is the pinnacle. And then here I was at Facebook saying, you know what? I'm doing something else.
Yeah.
And so still a lot of people say, what, are you crazy? And I go, no, I'm happy.
No. And like I want to slow down a little bit here around this year because I think that this year, and as much as we can talk about being an outlier, pioneer, and maverick, like this is part of the reason why we connected. This is part of the reason that we can have this conversation because you've done and had, you know, in terms of an accomplishment or things that you could like hold on to, things that a lot of people have aspired to, but at the same time, it wasn't fully what you wanted to aspire to in that moment. The way I look at it is like you've given up, no, you've chosen like outstanding and awesome, even when you had great or excellent. You know, when I hear you talk about this year, I used to be an actuary. I worked for one of the top consulting firms on the planet and had spent 6 years taking different exams to continue to move up through my career. And eventually when I realized that like I was really an entrepreneur and I was going to have what I was going to have is several businesses, I realized the designation would not be the thing that would actually, if I had to have the designation in order to be a successful entrepreneur, that was going to limit me significantly. And B, it was just time for a change. It was time to really focus my energy somewhere else. And I remember people were like, why would you give up what you like 6 years of your life and like in your early 20s, spending hundreds of hours studying alone and so on and so forth. Why would you leave this amazing like consultant firm that people like that's their resume point, like why, like what are you doing to go and move into a tech company that none of us have ever heard of? Same thing even with just leaving New York City to come out to Singapore, you know, leaving what is great in terms of that new frontier. And I think that, you know, as we're talking to the rule breakers, the outliers, the pioneers, and the mavericks, I think I want to slow down in here because it feels that you chose a new frontier as opposed to staying with the settled land that other people get to and consider to be, you know, the end of the journey.
Yeah, I did. And I can't say it was an easy decision. You know, in
Thank you
retrospect,
for that. Thank you for not saying that though. Honestly,
yeah,
like you know, you read out this like it's like yeah, and then I just made the choice and I just like gave up everything that I had and all like I'm hearing there's like external pressure all around. Like, what are you doing? The language that you're using is not like, oh, that's an interesting decision. Like, are you crazy? Right?
yeah,
So it's like, so tell me, like, if we don't mind, can we slow down in here? Like,
yeah.
tell me about like the days leading up to it, like your process around it, and how you were able to remain Aaron throughout that transition.
Yeah. So I think the first thing for me was I didn't even see it myself. I was so burnt out, and I was so focused on not losing my standing within the company, despite the fact that I was traveling to see my mom every 3 weeks. That what happened was my wife, well, we were in it was a therapy session because we wanted to learn how to handle my mom's illness better together. And in the session, she turns to me and says, "You have to leave Facebook. It's killing you." And I think it's really important to pull this out is because I didn't see it myself. And this is the power of what I do now as a coach, is help people see things that they're not seeing themselves. I would have just kept going. And when my wife said, "It's killing you," it was a shock to my system. And I went through a huge process of, okay, well, maybe it is killing me, but look at this position I'm in. I'm managing a huge research team and I have potential to have all this impact. And what would I do if I didn't do Facebook? And I had every voice possible in my head, and I couldn't differentiate for a little while between what was my voice and what was the voice of what friends, family, culture, society was telling me. And I think it's a really important point to pull that out, is that so often in life we are following, I use the word rule breakers, but we're following these rules, these unspoken rules of what it looks like to have the perfect career, the perfect life. And it is really hard to start realizing that that's not the life you want, to not know exactly what the next thing looks like, and to reconcile that you might lose friends, you might lose income, you might lose a path that you'd worked really hard to forge. And so I had to just really get clear with myself that it was a choice between the unknown or something that I knew was killing me.
Yeah. Yeah, when you say that resonates strongly, and I think there's a question here. There's a question here around this year where we talk about losing the income, potentially losing like impact, and still making that choice in the unknown. What was it about the unknown that drew you in? What was it about it that and perhaps, and 'cause I like to look at it here. There's typically two ways that we operate. One of them is running away from a problem, and the other one is running towards a possibility. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm finding that both of them can exist simultaneously,
Sure.
and so on and so forth. So I'll be curious for you, what was it either about the unknown that started pulling you towards it? And, because I think you found out that it was killing you. You became aware. You had someone that was able to reflect this to you. And then also, what I'm also hearing, just kind of in the space in between, is that you took the time to really be a team with your wife, and you found the opportunity to create the space for you to have these conversations, to be in that environment. You set up an environment that could allow that kind of openness to take place in a relationship that probably is already as a married couple, already has communication in there, but to take it to another level where they're I'm going to step out and let's create a new space for us to be able to explore this and be able to speak to each other in a way that we can really support each other. I want to call that out and just and acknowledge that about you, about your wife, and what you're building together, and just your own awareness to get the support along the way to really allow this to be a team along the way. So let me just, before I go into any questions, let me acknowledge that there. That's not a small thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I have incredible support from my wife. And I should mention that just because I left Facebook didn't mean I completely leapt into entrepreneurship. I had known for a while that that's what I wanted to do, but I knew I wasn't quite there yet in figuring out what it was. And so I took another job, but my wife and I were very clear that it had a 2-year shelf life at most, and that in those 2 years, I was going to dedicate time to figuring out what was next for me. And we knew it was going to be some sort of entrepreneurship, but didn't know what it was. And I got real lucky because I also, the same day I left Facebook, stumbled upon a coach. And I had a pretty negative view of coaches. But I had met this woman at an entrepreneurship event, and I thought, you know what? I'm so burnt out. Why not? I'll try it. And needless to say, I mean, she changed everything about me. Well, I changed everything about me, but she helped guide me there. And it was really through that process of working with her and then chatting with my wife about what is the life we want? What is the lifestyle we want? Where do we want to live? What do we want to be doing? That I landed on, you know what? I really want to do for others what this coach did for me. So it was not completely a leap into the unknown. I did take some time, but even when I left my last job to say I'm going to be a full-time coach, there was still that leap of, you know what, this may not work, but if I don't try this, I'll never forgive myself.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that, because I think there is an element that I'm finding that there is a leap that's involved, like the leap of saying I'm leaving academia and I'm leaping into like, okay, now I'm going to get a job in more like corporate setting, right? Even at Facebook, it's corporate didn't feel right as the word, but like let's use that for now, right?
Yeah.
And then to make the leap and say I'm choosing a different path, and I think that I think it is important to look at, when does someone become an entrepreneur, and it feels to me like there was, the leap was making that decision of saying, okay, wait, hold on, I'm not an academic, I'm not going to be an employee long term. Like, I need to start developing the skill set of becoming an entrepreneur. I did the same thing when I left Deloitte. It was like I went to go work for another place, but I knew I was coming in now with the mindset of I'm an entrepreneur. And then 2 years later, we moved out here to Singapore. So there's how do I say it? There's a glorification of like just diving deep into the unknown. And I think that, I'll love for us to rewrite the rules on what that can look like, even right here, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And yeah. I kind of want to go ahead and start now. Now start looking at where you are right now, and start also looking ahead going forward. And we've been alluding to like rule breakers. I know that's something that comes up in your world a lot. Rewriting the rules as well. So I think as we're talking, I'm getting an understanding as to like, okay, now I'm seeing why this is important. I'm seeing where this is coming from here. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you really quickly, Erin. I'd love to just give you a little bit of time to just like speak to rewriting the rules. Speak to the rule breakers out there that have been following the rules, and it's different because it's different than like, I'm finding a distinction here where it's like it isn't go break the rules. There's an element here that's like, no, there can still be rules, but almost on your terms. So I'm trying to tease out a little bit of distinction as I get to know you better here, to see like what's the difference here beyond the just go break all the rules. So tell me a little what rewriting the rules means to you.
Yeah, it's a complex distinction. So it's something I'm still working through myself. But I alluded to this earlier. There are so many rules that we are blindly following in life. And I feel that in a lot of cases, there are rules that make no sense, but we're all kind of following them anyway. There are rules that make a little bit of sense. And then, I think one of the things that a lot of people think of in life is there's either this black or white thing, right? You're either following the rules or you're not following the rules. And, I can imagine for me, my path took me out of entrepreneurship, or out into entrepreneurship, out of the corporate world. But one of the things I really love is the idea of working with people who actually don't love the rules they're following in the corporate world, but know that they don't need to leave corporate to design what their next success looks like, and rewriting what it looks like to be an employee in, say, a big corporation like Facebook, or rewriting leadership, rewriting what it means to create good culture. And so I think there's this, you don't throw the entire rule book out, but you say, okay, where are the places you can make some tweaks and say, I'm going to, maybe I'm 70% following this rule, but here's the 30% where I'm going to tweak some things. Or maybe it's the other way around. It's like, well, actually I'm 70% tweaking and 30% going to follow these rules. But it's really, I think it would be irresponsible of me to encourage people to just go out there and always break the rules, because there are some reasons rules got put in place. There also are some reasons that rules are just arbitrary, and making the right and learning to have that intuition is one of the things I really want to work with people on, is, have an intuition of A, when you're following a rule blindly, and then B, figuring out, okay, can I just tweak this rule a little bit, or do I need to come break completely from it? Or, maybe there's even another level in between of rewriting and breaking the rules. Who knows? It's all gray to me.
Yeah, well, let's would you mind if we explore that a little bit here?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think that there's some distinctions in there that as we go through, will help you, and also I think help everyone that's listening here to see how they can apply it for themselves. Because surprise, they can't live your life, right? So the idea here is let's yeah, too bad, right? It's a pretty good life. But to get to a place where we can see what are some of the processes that we can use to do this on our own. What are some of the tools we can use? I don't want to ask the question that directly. I don't want a 5 or 6 step process. That just doesn't excite me, realistically. You're talking about rewriting the rules and keeping the rule book, but then figuring out if you're making the tweaks along the way, 30 to 70% or whatever else it needs to be. I want to ask you about when was the hardest time that you had to do that? A time where because as much as we can talk here around being a rule breaker, an outlier, a pioneer, a maverick, it's not easy being the person that's doing things different. It's not easy to go against the grain. It's not easy to put it all on the line. And so I'll be really curious on your part with anything that you would want to share around the time where you tweaked the rules and it really mattered.
Yeah, I think an incredible example of this is my choice around my gender identity and how I've tweaked my body to fit or align more with who I think I am. So I'm going to back that up a little bit. There's an unspoken rule, or maybe even more of a spoken rule, to be honest, in society, that there are 2 genders. There's male and there's female. And there's also sort of this is more of an unspoken rule, that if you don't feel female, you must be male, or you don't feel male, you must be female. There has been, up until last maybe decade or so, a real struggle for people who don't really fit that mold. And the rules are, if you don't feel female, you must transition and become a male, or you don't feel male, you must transition and become a female. And I spent most of my life feeling this strange sense of in-betweenness, and I really couldn't put my finger on it. And it really didn't dawn on me that there was only one rule I wanted to tweak. I didn't want to become a male. I didn't even want to be taking on pronouns like they or them, although I experimented with that. I really just had one body part that I could not resonate with, and it was my chest. For years, I would look down and see complete aliens. And that was something that a lot of people didn't understand. Why would you, as a female-born person, not like your chest? And if you wanted to get rid of it, well, why don't you want to become a male? But I really wanted to look down and see a masculine chest. But I didn't really know what to do about that, other than I was staying how I was for a while. And I was really scared, because this is a rule of society that has physical consequences. You can easily be not just ridiculed, but you could be killed for not fitting into that mold. And so it took me 10 years of really getting to a point where I said, okay, how much does this matter to me? How much is this rule something I just need to follow for my own physical safety? And how much of it's a rule that I'm going to bend just a little bit? And it took working with a coach and getting really clear on, what the realistic fears were, what the unrealistic fears were, getting clear on, if I didn't do this, how was I going to feel longer term? To I finally said, you know what? I'm going to regret this if I don't try it. So a year ago, March, I had surgery. I now have a masculine chest. And I like to identify sometimes as non-binary gender just to bring awareness to this gray area of gender. But I'm also really adamant that I want to keep my pronouns as she and her because I was born a female, and I don't think there's any rule that says females have to have a chest. And I want to honor that just because I made an alteration to my body doesn't mean I have to change my pronoun.
Thank you, Erin.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you much for sharing that. And I think, and this feels like it's interesting because there are rules in here that, for me, like I'm like, I don't even know. I'm becoming more aware of some of the rules that I had put in there, right? Some of the rules that I had thought were hard rules, and seeing what I'm getting from you is like there was a process involved in being able to even explore some of those rules, and being able to see what it's like to step out and to almost like give yourself a chance to play with the fears, the consequences, and all that comes along with it. The question that's come to my mind is, what's the greatest takeaway? Like, if you had like the greatest insight or golden nugget, like takeaway that from this experience here, that you've gotten, that you would share to anyone that's listening here, and if this was going to be the one insight that changed it all for them, what would you say was the insight that you got from this?
I spent so many years fearful of what others would say and do that I denied my own happiness. And since altering my body to be more aligned with myself, I have not only had more support from people than I could have ever imagined, but the bigger insight is that the people that I was so scared of don't even notice. So I used to walk into restrooms and people would misgender me before I had my chest removed. Still happens, but with not any more frequency. And I have worn tank tops in locations where, like in Mexico, actually, where it's pretty obvious I don't have the chest. Nobody said anything. And so this big insight is that I spent so many years catering to what others, I had imagined others would think and feel, that I denied myself my own happiness. And it made me think, how many other decisions have I made in life based on how I perceived others would react, and denied myself the opportunity for my own joy.
I feel myself getting like emotional on that, because that one resonates so strongly. And so, like, outliers, pioneers, mavericks, rule breakers out there, if you need to, pause this right now and ask yourself that question. Ask the question that Erin just put out there, and to see where might you be denying yourself that happiness because of what you believe other people will perceive you as, and give yourself that gift. Give yourself that gift of even just being able to start asking the question. Because what I'm hearing from you, Erin, is that it was a long period of time. You got external help. You went through. It wasn't like it just happened. But the first thing there was around that awareness and being able to go from there. Yeah,
and to entertain possibility. And I entertained a lot of different options. And one of the things that was so helpful for me was to spend some time acting as if I'd already made that decision and just trying it on for size. Okay, how do I feel if one of the options was just to have a reduction? So I spent a week acting as if that was the case. And I went, how do I feel with that? And, how do I not feel with that? And did the same thing with having a full surgery. And, that's where I got really clear that the only reason I was stopping myself from the full surgery was that fear of others. But I really needed to sit with as if it had happened. And I think that's something I've been playing with in general in my life as I make decisions is if you're choosing between a couple of different things, sit with it as if
Yeah.
and see how that feels.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
let's give ourselves that gift of seeing how it feels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And be open to, I think another thing that came up as you were talking, Nemo, is be open to it turning out completely way better than expected. And what I mean by that is I have had so many people, I've been pretty out about, the process and my surgery, and I've had so many people come to me saying how inspirational I am, how much they didn't know about gender and now I've educated them, how much they love and support me living my authentic life, and how much it's inspired them to live their authentic life. And so there's a world where we're so worried about the reactions of others that we don't entertain the possibility that we might actually serve them by serving ourselves.
And that is I'm getting goosebumps as you say that, because that to me is one of the biggest things that I find. Part of the reason why I choose to serve outliers is because there's this element of if an outlier decides to shine and is able to resist the strong temptation, the strong cultural norm of reverting down to the mean around them, then that outlier gives the rest of gives the rest of everyone else a chance to see what else is possible. And in my mind, it's rather than one person coming down into whatever the status quo is, that person gets a chance to shine out and let other people see that, wait, the mean could actually be higher. We could actually just be living at a higher level of existence and happiness and contentment and joy and love and results, accomplishments, and I feel when you say that there, I wanted to say kudos to you for, you made a body change, which is something that's really visible. And I think there's elements of this here, especially with Outliers, Pioneers, Mavericks, rule breakers, where it's look, there are things that we want in life that if we're too visible, or at least there's a fear that if we're too visible that we're different, we lose it all. We lose the friends, we lose the status that we have in our organizations, we lose the respect. And for some of us, we're doing things that put us in a place where we feel that either our livelihood or our lives are at stake.
Yes.
And you made it. I wanted to say kudos to you because you made a change that is really visible.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people who want to make those changes, and they just need to see that one person making that change to have the courage to do it themselves.
Awesome.
I was going to say one thing that is a great phrase. There's this idea that you should be a lighthouse, and rather than tugboat, bringing people, tugging them into your way of being. But I really like this phrase that you can't be a lighthouse if your light isn't on. And so me changing my body was one way that I turned my light on so that I could become more of a lighthouse.
Yeah. I love that. Please, that is something that, if you don't mind, I'm going to encourage any of you that are watching or listening to this to try that out, to try what it's like to be the lighthouse that has a light on, and just give that a week. Let's put some of these things into play here, and see what does that look like. It might mean speaking up for something that you normally wouldn't have spoken up for, or doing something a little bit differently, or what, just allowing, the way I like to say is be more you, allowing 4% more of you to shine through, Mm-hmm. So let's leave that because I feel there's a lot in there. I want to make sure that everyone listening, do your work to process this, right? And I encourage you to not just listen to this and go on with your day. That is not the intent of this year. This is we do things differently for a reason, right? So I'm going to end I would like to wrap up our conversation a bit here, and what we've done right now is we've kind of looked at some of the things that have been happening for you in the past. See where things. I like to see where we are right now, and honestly, for me, I call this part in my mind the edge. Right, where it's okay, we've seen everything that all the wilderness that you've already traversed, and now you're at the edge. So I'd love to hear as we wrap up here, something that for your next level, because we don't do next steps here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do next level. For your next level, like what's a challenge that you're taking on right now that honestly scares you? like let's get into the real part of this here. What's a challenge that you're taking on right now that really scares you? And then we have some time. If you'd like, we can do some coaching around that or something else. But let's bring it to right now and see what is it like to be a rule breaker or rewriting the rules in the current moment.
Sure. So a big challenge I'm taking right now in my business is that I have publicly committed to trying to make $100,000 in 90 days.
One second. Sorry, Erin. I just like now I'm listening to this in here. You publicly committed to trying to make it, right?
Yeah. So I'm publicly committed to making $100,000 in 90 days. Let me rephrase that. And the challenge being, I'm actually okay with if I don't make $100,000. The challenge is for me to get in motion and get creative. And so I'm thinking bigger than I've ever thought before. I'm thinking outside of the rules, even of what coaches think is possible. So a lot of coaches think, well, you do one-on-one coaching and that's it. Or maybe you run a group here and there. And so my challenge right now is getting creative about the experiences I want to bring to people. And the bigger challenge is finding those people who are willing to be at their edge with me. And it scares me to think of how to bring people who inspire me to their edges.
Yeah. That last one, I feel very, very strongly. We were talking about this before we got on the call. I'm like, you're someone who inspires me. You're someone who calls a lot from me. And I like to leave time to actually coach. Like, who am I to do this here? You know, for someone who's someone like you who's accomplished all these things, who stood out in all these ways. So let's play this out in real time.
Okay.
So I think I'm hearing, would you be open to some coaching right now?
I am open.
All right, cool. I'm hearing that you're thinking bigger. And I'm hearing what you're saying around, finding those people. I want to play with that for a little bit and leave that where it is right here, because I'm going to go back to your lighthouse and the light on, right? Okay. I think you know how. I think you know how. If your light is on, your people will come. You know, and I think you've actually done it. Like really, I'm feeling that some of your people are listening to this right now, right? And if you know that you're one of those people, let her know that her light is on by reaching out and make sure that comes to light, right? I'm just going to put that out there. If there was one person who was listening to this right now and they had an opportunity to go through a life-changing experience with you, right? What's the experience that you would want to have them go through? Let me leave it at that. What's the experience that you would want to bring to life?
I think if it were working with just a single person in this particular scenario.
Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah.
It could be with, let me be clear. It could be with anyone, but there's one person that will be enrolled on this. So this would be like the next person, right?
Yeah,
so
that's exactly. So This is not a group scenario. So I was thinking about what would I do with that one person, and what experience do I want to create? And the best way I can think about it is it would be completely. I don't have a formula yet. I don't want to create a rule around this. I want to bring people somewhere outside of their comfort zone physically, somewhere they've never been. I want to not only challenge them in my coaching capacity to think differently and be different, but I would also want to, depending on what I learned about them and their particular needs, the things the rules they need to bust out of, or the mindsets or things that they need to kind of overcome, I would want to create really tailored experiences for them. So it might be something like a physical challenge because they need to build up some confidence around their ability to persist through things. It might be a challenge like, I don't want to skydive, but I would probably do it for a client if they needed to take a leap of faith. I would be really eager to play with what can I create in different locations that gets people to enact the things that they need to get past.
Yeah, cool. Let's leave this right where it is. I have a question for you. Why do you feel right now that it's hard for you to find? Do you mind if I call them the rule breakers right now? Is that the, like, if I had is there a term that you would use to call someone who's part of your tribe? Rule breakers,
yeah, the
right?
rule breakers.
Yeah.
The rule breakers.
Why does it feel hard to find the rule breakers right now to you?
I would say that there are a lot out there. So the first step for me is just putting my light out more. And so I'm thinking creatively about that. But I think I've found, especially in my current network of people, that there are a lot of people who are intrigued by the idea of rule breaking, but they're just not quite ready. And so, or there's a lot of people who understand the power of breaking the rules, but they don't believe in what's possible for them. And so go ahead.
Quick question. Are those your people?
No, but I'm a lot of people come talk to me. Not everybody's my people. And so it just takes patience and persistence to draw in the people who really know that there is more that's possible.
Okay. So yeah, so let's like, I'm feeling it. I feel like we, for some reason, I feel like we're close, but like, part of me is just like, I want to know who your people are. And I think the way that I love to hear this is like, we've talked about, there's something here around like the rewriting the rules that seems really interesting, at least for the next few minutes that I would want to go down. It may not be the thing that you do long term, but so for those people that have found themselves already rewriting the rules, that find themselves consistently in a place where like the rules don't seem to apply, but they're willing to like either tweak or they're willing to do what they need to make the rules work for them. For those people who have accomplished success in life already, being a rule rewriter, a rule breaker, and are at a point of trying to either like figure out what's next in terms of what's the next rule to break, or there's something in front of them that's like, okay, this feels impossible for me because it just goes so far against the rule. This is not an 80% tweak. This is 100% tweak, aka a breaking of the rules. What would you say has been like the almost like the dark side to rewriting? Like, what are the real what's the dark side? I'll leave that as a question there.
I think the dark side is loneliness, feeling different. I think one of the hardest things I have encountered as I have broken or rewritten rules is finding people who are like me, who get it. And I think that's one of the reasons I think some people hesitate to rewrite the rules or hesitate to break that next rule that's really the big one, which I felt for me, my gender was one of those. I was already gay. I'd already broken that rule. The gender one felt like that was too much. But there is that loneliness and that lack of community and the lack of accountability from others to help you see when you might be playing small or holding back. Because I think even those people who want to break the rules still get trapped sometimes, or people who want to rewrite the rules don't know how to rewrite them in the way that makes sense, and they kind of fall back into what's comfortable. And so that's finding your tribe, and that sense of loneliness is a huge dark side for those of us who don't stick to the rules.
Yeah, I'm like I get that one so viscerally. I think a lot of people who, like listening here will get it too because it's something that shows up for me, and I specifically curate for people who are looking for tribe there. And there's something that loneliness is it's so visceral, right? I think and it's almost like we were talking about earlier around like the different ways that like I don't know if we were talking about it earlier actually, but it's like this like being able to when you step away from the norm, that can be incredibly lonely. There's something that you said here that I just want to kind of pull out, which was you said the rules that were really meaningful. There was something in there around like when you said this for the first time, I actually heard there was a scale involved in terms of like the rule breakers that you want to be playing with. You're like, look, it's not the people who are thinking maybe maybe I can break rules, or the people who are like, how did you like break those rules? Or like sometimes I like to, but you're like the people who like really break the big ones. It's like, look, I was already out. That like the big one was this one. So whatever that big one is for him, I like I'm getting a sense like energetically like you're looking for those kinds of people who are willing to take on the big rules in their lives, whatever it is, to either see those big rules in their lives or to be whatever it is, and to take that on. They might have changed the rules all the way up until this point. They might have rewritten the rules all the way along the way. They might have broken all the rules that didn't matter. But when it comes to the ones that like are actually the game changers, yeah.
Yes. And I think the rules that matter are often the ones that have the potential to change the world. And even with me having my chest surgery, I have the potential to change the world by being me and showing people the nature of gender being this fluid thing. And it doesn't have to be that like I go make Facebook and make Google or make the biggest product in the world. I think it's the people who are willing to leave a mark on this planet in some way, and that they're willing to do it by breaking some of the hard and fast rules that people say you just can't do that.
Awesome. Like if you had a program and experience, if you had a life that was full of people who were willing to go on the journey with you to as they take on the rules that make a difference for themselves and for others, the hard and fast ones, the hardest rules out there, the ones that actually matter. If you were surrounded with a group of people that you served as they were going on through their journey, both in getting ready for it and after they've made that choice while they're out there still rewriting the rules, would that be something that would like excite you as you like build your tribe and get to the challenge, your publicly proclaimed challenge? Would that be something that really excites you?
Hell yes. That is who I am here to serve. Bar none. That is, I have known for my whole life that I want to have an impact on this world. And it's taken a journey of learning what that looks like. And I'm absolutely certain that these are the people that are going to have the impact. And I can have more impact serving them as a tribe than I could as a single human on my own.
And so now I think that the hard question for me here, or the edge question for me is like, are you willing to serve them and them alone right now? Are you willing to be a light that almost like in the light spectrum, if ultraviolet is the thing that helps these people who are taking on the hard challenges, if that's the only light that they see, are you willing to be that ultraviolet light for them? And because there are rule changers out there, there are rule breakers, and there are those that change the world.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're looking to play in the latter pool, and there are a lot of people out there that are supporting people who are generally looking to change some of the rules around their place.
Yeah.
But the real impact that you're making seems to go far beyond that. And so I like to ask that question in this moment, and it can change afterwards. But in this moment, would you be willing to say like, yes, it's these are my 10s and I'm going for it?
Yeah. That's what I'm doing.
Awesome.
That's my everyday.
Awesome. So let's wrap up this here then with the element of this. Like, if you can leave one message here for that game-changing rule breaker, for the person that takes on the things that matters. If you leave one message for them, either from like to summarize or just something that they themselves might need to hear at this time, what would that message be? And then we'll come in and I'll ask you about how they can actually get in contact with you and where they can go from there.
I would say, as much as a rule breaker or a rebel or an outlier or a pioneer thinks they can go it alone, find a tribe, find a coach, find a mentor, because we all still have our blind spots and we still all play it safe too often.
So Erin, what's the best way for someone to continue the journey with you? Because they've already started with you right now. How do they continue?
They can email me directly at erin@erinmbaker.com. Or they can find me on my Facebook, which is I can send a link if that works. I have a Society of Bullshit Rule Breakers tribe that I am trying to grow at the moment, and I'm trying to up level and have more game changers in that group. So come on and join my tribe.
All right, there we go. Society of Bullshit Rule Breakers, right?
Yep.
Nice indeed. There we go. Like, game on. It's so funny. Like there's an element of play that it just like showed up. You're like, I just said that. Like, it's really cool.
And Facebook did not shut me down for that. So
nicely done. Talking about rewriting the rules of it there. All right. So we have this here. Send me the link. We'll go ahead and we'll include that.
Okay.
But Erin M. Baker.
Yep.
Erin at erinmbaker.com.
Yep.
And that's Erin, ERIN.
Yep.
Fantastic. I want to thank you so much for making the time for this, for being fully in this conversation, for rewriting the rules here with me. Like, this thing is continuing to evolve, and what I've been learning more about myself and how to serve others through our conversation and through the way that you show up. You are a lighthouse to me, and your light is on for me. And I just appreciate that you are doing all that you can to continue to serve your people out there. And it's really serving in the world. From one outlier to another, from one pioneer to another, and from one maverick to another. And I'll add this one on there, from one rule breaker to another here. I see you, I respect you, and I thank you. I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you.